Hey everyone, in this video we'll be going over how to add secure authentication and role-based access control, or RBAC, to a Webflow CMS app using Descope. Alright, so this is the landing page of the sample Publish Pro application. So as we can see, the main wrapper, the sidebar, and the dashboard are not viewable right now to the user since we are not signed in. So the first step is to sign in with Google for us. And here we can see that it quickly logged us in. And this is the user profile widget on the top right with all the personal information as well as a logout button. And on the main dashboard are the permissions. And this user had the role of an editor and so therefore has permissions to all of the actions, including new articles on the left here. If I'd logged in with the other user, then it would only have the edit, create permissions available. And so now we can test logging out, and as we can see, it has logged us out of the portal. So let's start off in the Descope console. The first thing you have to do is create your project in Descope, and you can do that by just directing yourself to the Descope console and going through the process. Then you create a custom flow and configure your authentication flow. I have already done that, and I named it Publish Pro Auth Flow. So as you can see, I have multiple screens and I have different types of authentication as well. So this can be customized to however you need for your project. All right, after that's done, we can go ahead to Webflow, and in this demo, I'm using a template linked in the blog, and you can feel free to use this template or any other one. So to start, this is the Webflow app, and there are no restrictions on permissions and no login flows or anything of that sort right now. So let's start by implementing the authentication. The first thing we'll do is adding the required Descope scripts, the web component, and the user profile widget scripts to the head code of the Webflow app. Then let's go ahead and switch to the Webflow interface where we want to add an authentication modal and a user profile widget. So first we'll add a authentication modal, and we'll do this through a code embed. So create a new code embed element and paste in this auth modal div. And here, as you can see, you do need your Descope project ID. So to get that, you go to the Descope console, project settings, and copy that project ID. Save and close that. And as we can see, that's right here. So we can just move that to the top of the body. Now we also want to add the class name by doing a style selector in Webflow. So we add the auth modal style selector here. The next step is to create the user profile modal, and for our purpose, I will create it next to the sign in button. So I'll add an additional code embed, paste this in, again, need the project ID. So we will move this down next to the sign in button. And we want to add the style selector of user profile container to this element. And we also do not want this to be shown when the user is not logged in. So we are going to add a class wHide. wHide is the style class that controls whether an element is dynamically shown or hidden on the page based on the authentication state. So let's paste some of those styles in, including the wHide class. So we paste this in at the headers section of Webflow, and we can move on to implementing custom authentication. So the first part of the custom authentication for the Webflow app is to wait for the DOM to be fully loaded and set up necessary DOM elements and initialize the event listeners. So we'll copy this code in to the footer. All right, the next step is to handle the user interactions with the authentication interface, and this includes showing the authentication modal when the sign-in button is clicked, and toggling the profile dropdown when users click their name in the user profile. So we paste those in as well at the bottom. And then we can start managing user sessions. So for this part, we are handling authentication success, authentication error, and when the user logs out. And so this includes changing what parts of the screen are shown or hidden, and also storing the user's session data securely. So we can paste this in. So we've pasted this in, and we continue to handling session persistence so that users do not have to log in every time they visit the page. All right, let's save these changes and we'll test it later. So now we move on to implementing role-based access control. And this starts with creating roles and permissions in the Descope console. So navigate to the authorization section of your Descope console and take a look at permissions. So I've created 4 different permissions for this app: create article drafts, update article drafts, delete, and publish article drafts. I have also created 2 different roles, an editor and a writer, who have different permissions available to them. Writers are content creators who can only write and edit drafts. So this means that the only permissions available to them are create article drafts and update article drafts. However, editors have more control. They, in fact, will have full control. The control to create, update, delete, and publish article drafts. So after you've created permissions and roles, you should be manually assigning those roles to the users in your Descope console. So you can go ahead and click the 3 dots on a user and click edit, and you can add roles in the authorization section of this part of the console. The next step is to go back to the Webflow editor and check that for the appropriate buttons on the interface, the correct permissions are given. So let's take a look at the main wrapper in the dashboard, and we want to confirm that these buttons have the correct permissions attached to them. So once you've done with that, to update the UI based on permissions and based on the user's roles when they authenticate, we have to create the function update UI based on permissions. So we'll paste this into the script. And we also want to update the authentication success function. So I'm going to paste these 2 lines into the auth success function. Paste this right here. Save that. And we similarly want to update the initial authentication check to include the permission-based user interface updates. And that would be right here. All right. And that should be it. So let's save these elements. Click publish. And let's take a look. Just to recap, here's a quick demo. So here's the login flow. I click sign in with Google, that's my choice. And I now see my page. This is the role of an editor. A role of a writer would only view this edit action and the new articles action. And I can also log out from here. And that's it. And now you have a fully working end-to-end authenticated and with role-based access control CMS application, all using Descope. Thank you and happy building!